Alright, so today we don't have a viewer game that was sent in, but we have something else that's very good. We have a game that was played by two of the world champions in a world championship match. Yes, so this one is between Anatoly Karpov and Garry Kasparov. And so this was the 16th game of their world championship match. And Anatoly Karpov is the white pieces, and Garry Kasparov is playing as the black pieces in this one. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this one. We got a good game for us tonight. All right, so first off, e4, c5, knight f3, e6, and d4. So this I think is a little bit interesting. You know, seeing Karpov play an open Sicilian, because he was more of a positional player than a tactical player. So it's a little bit different. Usually you see a lot of d4 from his games, at least I do. And he was very positional, so a little bit different seeing him go for this. Okay, so knight b5, d6 square is weak, so he attacks it immediately. Obviously, you don't want to let this knight get to d6, where you have to get the dark square bishop immediately, because then you have all these weak dark squares, and your opponent has a extra dark square bishop. You don't want that, so he plays d6. Now the queen is also defending d6, so it's no threat. Okay, c4. Getting some space in the center, preventing d5 breaks helps to prevent d5, because that's an important move in the Sicilian. Okay. Alright, so that's prevented. And so now knight to f6 is played. Knight 1 c3. Defending his pawn, attacked or defended. a6. Knight e3. d5. Okay. So he had spent time playing c4 and e4 and getting control of this square. So d5, this move is a gambit, because this square is defended by a number of pieces, and so Karpov, he accepts this challenge, and now he has this pawn here. He's got an extra pawn on d5. And I say, usually most of the time, if your opponent offers you a pawn in the form of the gambit, usually I think it's best to take it and make him prove that it's worth it. All right. Knight b4, and bishop to e2. So this move is a little bit different than a move that I read he played in another game of this match. In the other game, it went bishop c4 and then bishop to g4. So notice that now with this battery here, there's no bishop to g4. Bishop c5. Okay. So one thing is black right here. Black could regain his pawn after, was it knight takes? Yeah. So if knight takes, yeah, he can regain the pawn after something like this happening. And yeah, that's just one kind of variation that could happen. Okay, so bishop to c5 though, developing instead of regaining the pawn. Okay, castling kingside. One other possible idea here was, instead of castling, playing bishop to e3 with this idea. So if bishop takes, queen a4 check, and then you're forking, and also this knight can't retreat because there's the pawn. So you could do this and then still have the extra one. That's just one other variation that could have happened. Okay, go to the game castling. Castling, bishop f3. Okay, yeah. So now we got a lot of pieces holding onto that pawn. Okay, so let's see here. What next? So bishop to f5 is played. Okay, so right here, black has all of his minor pieces already developed, and they're already on very active squares. So notice that white still needs to develop this bishop, and he does have the extra pawn for his trouble. And yeah, so the thing is, it's not maybe necessarily showing maybe that all this activity might not yet be worth the pawn, because it's still very imbalanced game, pawn for activity. But we'll see here what happens. Okay, but the thing is maybe I don't know if the pawn is necessarily worth it in this position, but what I do know is that for Garry Kasparov, it would be worth it, because for him, this is kind of the type of position he would like to have. He would feel comfortable having very active pieces. He was a very dynamic player. He was a very attacking person. So you give him this type of position, and he would be pretty good for it. Whereas, maybe in a different type of position, maybe he'd be less comfortable with. But for someone like him, I think that he would like this. So, regardless of whether or not the pawn is worth it, it's worth it for him to have active pieces. Okay, bishop g5. Okay, and then rook f to e8. Or, actually, I didn't need to say rook f, but because the other rook could have gone. But anyways, rook e8. Queen d2. Okay, queen d2. b5. Okay, yeah. And, yeah, so one thing to note is this knight is very well placed here on the rim of the board, where it has no squares that it can go to. Notice that now also it can't get back to c2. So, yeah, it's not very, very active here. Okay. Next move. Rook a to d1. And knight to d3. So, yeah, this knight lands here on the third row. So a knight on the third or the sixth row is really where it wants to be. This is kind of the prime spot for a knight. This is where all knights dream of getting to. And a knight here is, as according to like the point scales, knights are worth 3. But really a knight on the third row is, worth much more than that. And because the points are all relative. A knight on the third row is about as useful as a rook, really, when you think about it. Okay. So that knight, very, very good. Knight a to b1. So yeah. b4 is a threat, so, I guess he wants to get the knight out of that. And one variation that I should show. So if one option is d6, when Kasparov could have given up in exchange, possibly because these minor pieces are all very good. Okay, so that's one possibility. Maybe he uses the exchange, but the activity would compensate. Okay, the game, knight a to b1, h6. Okay, bishop to h4, because where else is this bishop going? Bishop to e3. Bishop to e3 doesn't look so good, because bishop takes, f takes, and then this pawn doesn't look so good. Yeah, okay, so back to the game. Bishop h4. Oh, okay, so h6, and yeah, bishop h4. Okay, b4. And now knight to a4, so another knight on the side of the board, yeah. Not where knights want to be. So, bishop d6, obviously you don't want to let that knight on the side take your good bishop. And then here we see bishop to g3 is played here. Okay, and then rook to c8, right? Yes, yeah, rook c8. And now notice how all these black pieces are all very active. So yeah, you got the rooks on open files. This knight is on the third rank. You got all types of activity. Meanwhile, these two knights don't look so happy. But at least he does have the pawn. But it's very difficult. Okay. b3. So the idea, get this knight here, challenge this guy. All right. And g5. Yeah. Okay. Where was I? Yeah. g5. So yeah. So g5 is played, and the idea is, I believe, to play g4. That's a threat because then, yeah, if you let g4 happen, then it could hit the bishop, and it is, yeah, this pawn is pretty well defended if it advances, and then this bishop might not be so happy because it's kind of running low on some squares. Okay, so g5. And let's see here. Bishop takes d6, queen takes, and g3. Okay, and yeah, now that the bishop has g2, yeah, because probably wouldn't be so good to have the bishop on e2. So, you know, if g4 happens, that would be not so good. If the bishop can't go back to g2, it would be better on g2. Okay. Knight d7, bishop g2. Queen to f6, now there's no knight to b2 ideas. Because now if it happens, there's two pieces covering that square, so preventing activity. So yeah, that's prevented, there's no challenging this guy. This guy's still going to be here, causing white problems. Alright. a3, a5, a takes, queen a2, and now here's a very good move actually. So, and I looked at this. This is actually pretty good. Like, I thought it was pretty clever because bishop g6. That's a very simple move. Like that's why I liked it, because it's a very simple move. It's just dropping the bishop back one square. And the point is that now you reveal the queen on f2. And it's that simple. It's just revealing an extra piece. So, such a simple way to improve your pieces. Okay. Yeah, so he keeps finding ways to just improving his pieces. Even very small moves like that are improving his position. Okay, d6. g4. Yeah, not taking the pawn, just focusing on other things. Alright, queen d2. Yeah, so queen comes back, and then king g7. So here's a very good point. So notice just king g7. See, he's still down a pawn, but he isn't rushing in. Because if your opponent, if you look at white, he can't really do too much. He can't really accomplish very much. So if your opponent can't do much, then you shouldn't rush in and say, I have to attack right now. Just, take your time, slowly improve your pieces. Okay. f3, queen takes, f takes. Yeah, and again, there's really not too much that white can do in this position. Okay. Queen d4, king h1, knight f6, rook f4, and knight e4. And yeah, again, there's no real good moves for white. There's no real defense here. And here, Karpov takes on d3 to get rid of the knight. Now f2, rook takes f2, bishop takes d3, rook f to d2, so you got the pin. Still difficult though. Now rook takes on d3. So if we do look at just the material here, It's actually 3 minor pieces against a queen, which in terms of material is even. But if we look, these white pieces are kind of disorganized, and also this white king is vulnerable. So in this type of position, these 3 minor pieces are not exactly fighting against this queen. You know, normally 3 minor pieces against queen, even fight, but not in this case. Rook c1. Okay. Then knight b2. Knight b2, queen f2. Okay, so here is one interesting variation to show. Okay, so notice that, okay, so after queen f2, the rook on c1 can't be captured. Yeah, so I was working this out. The rook on c1 can't be captured. If the rook takes, you can do rook to e1. And then, okay, if bishop takes, you just take checkmate. And if rook takes, queen takes, bishop, checkmate. So yeah. So that's one reason. That's why the rook can't take. Let's get back to the position where I was. Yeah, so rook can't be captured. Okay. Knight to d2. Rook takes d1. Knight takes d1. And then here, so yeah, rook to e1 check. Knight f1, bishop takes, and then, yeah, queen takes. Okay, yeah, and so this is where the checkmate would be. But actually, okay, we actually didn't get to this because at rook to e1 check is when he resigned. But this is what would have happened if he didn't resign. Okay. Yeah, so very interesting game by Kasparov and Karpov, two of the world champions. I'm a big fan of Karpov, so a little bit sad for me to see him lose. But you can't win every game. But yeah, this was a very nice game. Shows the importance of knights getting to the third row, how strong they are, and also how material is only part of the game. You know, being up a pawn, but having very unactive pieces. Yeah, it's kind of one of the things you have to keep in mind. Sometimes, you know, you get too greedy. But anyways, yeah, so very interesting game. Thanks for suggesting this one to me. All right.